I will do. Right. And
Awesome. Thank
then if
you.
anybody else shows up while we're in session here, I will certainly let them in. But I think it's 7:05, so we can probably go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to our meeting with the principal. We have Dr. Edmunds, principal for 12 Corners, as well as Mark Kress, who is the athletic director for Brighton Central District. Thank you so much for taking time out of your
Yeah,
very
good
busy
job.
day. Um, oh, somebody, please, can you mute? I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, this is just something that we try to offer parents so that they can get some information about the things going on at 12 Corners. PTSA, we're really here just to support your children and make sure they have the best experience possible. And we just supplement and provide extra money and support to the school for things like school trips, et cetera, as well as activity nights, which you guys know that all of your children have the opportunity to experience. We do them 3 times a year. So it's where your kids can start to get social and do it in a safe and positive way. So again, that's our PTSA. So we're always looking for volunteers. I just have to plug. So if anyone, you can reach out to us at our email. I think you can find it online and just give us a email and say, hey, thanks for coming. But tonight we just wanted to take this opportunity and have our athletic director here to talk about modified sports. And then Dr. Edmunds will talk a little bit about school trips and answer any questions. And thank you guys. I will get started so that we don't take too much of your time.
Great. Coach, you want to start?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I think last year when I was here, I did get some feedback for some of the things that some parents and individuals were looking for, and so feel free at the end to give me some suggestions. But one of those areas was for improved communication, and I think the framework was set this year for doing that. I think you'll continuously see more communication at the modified level. One of the areas that I first put in a fair amount of time is the website. If you get a chance to go there, there's something called FAQs, and that's all on modified. What's the difference between Mod A, Mod B, developmental, and all of the specific details that typically people are going to ask about modified sports. Um, there's also, I added a page for camps, a page for youth programs, and we're continuously adding those. But if you were a sixth grader wanting to play softball, you probably could find a link that took you to the town of who was in charge of that. And so we also added the head of the boosters clubs, a page for all of those in case somebody wanted to ask questions or get more involved. I added a link for all the coaches' emails. So one of the things that parents could do if they really weren't sure is just email the varsity coach or somebody in the program, and all of our coaches are willing to help out. So a number of different items there. I also tried to start emailing parents more directly right before the season. Typically, one or two emails are coming out reminding parents of registration and the start dates and more information on that, like where the practice would be, in the morning, where would they drop their bags, where to go after school, and all those specifics. So I also added two parent meetings, one in the fall and one in the spring, which I'll continually do because I think all the rules, there's a lot of rules and expectations for athletics and people aren't aware. So I'll continually be available for parents at the beginning of those seasons and try to get them caught up to speed on how our transportation waivers work and everything like that. I also collected all the names in phys ed class. We have a great phys ed staff that was willing to ask all the kids about 6 weeks before the season starts. What sports are you interested in playing? And so I got those names and I created Parent Square communication systems for each program and gave them to the coach so they would start trying to email parents ahead of time. Hey, here's information about the sport. If we have any open gyms leading into the season, don't forget about the physicals and what's needed. And so we'll continue to to do that method and try to get more information out. So hopefully nobody misses out on the opportunity. We'll continue to try to improve communication. So I think do you have any questions on communication?
Hi, Mark. This is Dasha. I have one.
Yeah.
My sixth grader can daydream a
Mhm.
little bit, so I'm not sure if he filled it out correctly or not. Is that something I could just email you to make sure he's on the list for a particular sport
Yeah,
or no?
you definitely
Okay,
can. Yeah, he's a sixth grader now going into seventh grade.
you are correct. Yes.
Okay, yes. Yeah, feel free. I have that list, so if somebody's concerned, they can send it to me and I'll definitely add it. And so now that list I give to the coaches and with the emails and they know ahead of time. Hopefully, midsummer they're saying, "Hey, we're looking forward to having you." Just a reminder, and you start getting more information ahead of time like that. So, yep, feel free to email me if you're concerned.
Mark, this is great. I don't know if you can see, but I'm just sharing my screen so that people can see where all this
Yeah.
awesome information is.
So can we slide down?
Yeah, yeah.
And will you go to, let's click on, okay, so there's the FAQs. What is the philosophy? How do you sign your child up? I'll go through that this summer and update it. The league just changed how some of the modified sports offerings are. Instead of a modified B, which is typically 7 and 8, a couple sports went 7, 8, 9. And so I'll kind of update all that and try to get that out. There's a couple minor changes, but most of it's the same. There should be, if you take a look, Danielle, can we go to the very bottom of the athletics?
Oh, yep.
Go.
Sorry. I don't want to make anybody sick, but I know what you're talking about.
So we should see the sign up dates. I think that's most important because you want to plan your vacations around and not miss the start date.
The
Um,
start dates here
yeah, can we
on
click
here.
on that?
Yep.
So I looked at it earlier. I didn't realize we don't have the registration dates up. So I emailed the gentleman tonight, but I do have them. So our fall registration will open up July 28th. So New York State does not let you register any later than 30 months out, 30 days out from the start of the season. So we have to wait within 30 days, and we have a brand new system coming in. We had a registration system and they sold it to another company. So we're trying to get trained on that now. But there'll be a link there under registration and people can start going in July 28th. I think what's important is the physicals because sometimes it's hard to get them. You have to have an updated physical within 1 year of the sport. Now, the sport starts August 25th. If that physical was done anytime in the month that we start, so anytime in the month of August, that physical's good. It's good for the fall. The winter, they would have to have it. But if you were scrambling last minute because the physical was a few days too early, you'll be okay. Any physicals in August will be okay for the fall season.
And
Uh,
super important to know that this is different this past fall and now this coming fall, that the modified season actually starts the week before school does. In the past, it hasn't been that way. We've usually started modified sports on the first day of school. So important to note this date for vacations and all sorts of things.
yeah, thank you for saying that, Danielle. And that's the whole league. So, and the way they set the schedule, it's going to be like 8 days later. Everybody's playing 8 days later, and so if you started a week later, you would miss the first 3 or 4 games. So everybody's starting at the same time. Um, let's see. One of the questions that I recall was, can we try to increase opportunities at the modified level at the middle school? There has, some of those questions are like indoor track was asked. Can we add rowing at the middle school? And can we, maybe tennis at the middle school? right now, financially, we put a hold on adding anything. And so probably the end of this year or possibly next year, we can take a look again at adding things. But I think as a staff, I'll continue to encourage our coaches to do more open gyms and opportunities in the off season. We'll keep looking to expand out the number of camps and just opportunities for the kids. So, but in terms of starting an entire new program like indoor track, that's going to be on a hold for now. Let's see. One of the things that we did this year is we improved a goal across the all levels was to improve fitness. And so we did have a fitness trainer in there at the modified level, at least the fall season. It got kind of busy in the weight room during the wrestling season, but we'll continue to look to add more opportunities there where kids get to go in and learn the safety and all of the movements. And so, if your child played a sport, hopefully they kind of shared that they went in there, once a week, 1 or 2 seasons this year. And across the phys ed, that's being improved in phys ed at the high school levels and so forth. So, I think I think I'm open for questions if anybody has any.
Hi, this is Dasha again. I am experienced parent in sports, but I think it might be helpful to others on the call if you talked about like how many times a week are the practices, how long is the season, the games, how do you find out the games, that kind of stuff for new parents.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you asking that. And I think there's a big difference between the youth programs and modified. Once you get into modified, you're going 5 days a week, every single day, Monday through Friday. There may even be a game and a practice on a Saturday, depending on the sport, but it's typically 8 weeks long. There was a committee in Monroe County that just looked at all sports and they're trying to unify them. And so the state allows a certain number of sports in each sport, and they're going to max it out. So if 12 games are allowed in baseball, we're going to compete in 12 games for all sports. And so there'll be a couple more sport contests added in a few of the sports. But Danielle, could you go to the website for me?
I can open it back up again.
This is something I
Okay.
do, especially in the fall parent meeting. If you can get to schedules, there's parents that are seniors that don't know some of this information, which they would have loved to know. So this is our schedule page. Let's see, where is it? If you click on view schedules right there,
Yep.
then you can click on your sports team. Will you click probably a spring sport like lacrosse, modified lacrosse? So it brings up the schedule. This was an awful season. A lot of these have a lot of red lines because we're constantly moving contests. But at the very top, keep going a little higher. There's the subscribe in the top corner. You can click on that and it will drop your schedule. You follow the directions there and it will drop the sports schedule into your schedule. And then when I change it, it will automatically change it in your schedule. If you want a reminder 24 hours or 12 hours or something like that, it will send you a reminder. You can email this to grandparents and other people. So there's an email this schedule. When I change a schedule in the computer, it automatically changes it on the visiting school's website and anybody that signed up. So the home school always controls it, so there's no screw ups. And the website is the most accurate. Once I change it in the computer, then I'll call coaches. When the coaches get a break, they'll send an email to parents. A lot of times we're not canceling a baseball game or whatever the sport is till just about lunchtime. I have to have it done around 1:30 so we can communicate it out. If kids have to get on a bus to go home, we're ready for that. But if we do it too early, we find out later on that we could have played. So the buildings and grounds may suck off the puddles and then they'll leave. They'll let the wind and the evaporation get to the fields, and then they'll come back after lunch and we'll start looking at them and we'll make a decision. I would say if the weather's not great, check the website before you leave work early or before you leave. That's gonna be accurate. As soon as we cancel, we go into the computer first, we change that. And so that's a really good place to go. If you have multiple kids, you can actually click on both schedules and create a calendar that has both of them lined up. And you could print that off. Um, let's see, there's a button, so that's notify me if you wanted to be notified ahead of time. If we go back out, can you go back out to the scheduling page, but one out? So if I click on, well, there's not a game. If there was a game today, can you go click on like the month of May and pick it? Okay. So there's, who are we playing? May 28th. Modified B lacrosse is, where's one? We're going away, actually. There's one there that says Calkins Road. If you wanted the directions, you could click on that. That's the direction to where they're playing. A lot of times it has their middle school name opposed to the high school or wherever it plays on their campus. They're hooking that in. So you're not driving around their campus looking for it. There's your GPS coordinates and address. I'll have phone calls of people away. They'll call the office and say, I can't find it, and so they never knew the addresses were in there. I think that's about it.
Mark, what time do they generally practice?
Yeah, most are going to go from 3 to 4:30. If it's a game day, we do have people in sports study hall in the cafeteria that will watch them. And so if it's a lot of these games are starting at 5 o'clock because people are having trouble getting buses here any sooner. And so it can be a long wait. We encourage kids to go home after school if they can on a game day and then come back. But if they don't have family, a ride or a way back, we will watch them. It'd be great if people would pack them a lunch. They get pretty hungry. But we do have people there monitoring them, watching them until game time. In the morning, we open the locker room so when they come into school, they can drop their bags in the locker rooms and a coach is there to monitor it, and then they'll lock the door. And then right after school, they'll unlock it. They'll allow the kids to grab their bags and either change or go to sports study hall. And then from sports study hall, they can let a few kids out as well to change. They're not allowed to wander downtown. Next year, we're going to have a gas station right across the street, and they're all gonna, be excited to go eat candy and things. And so that's gonna be challenging for us to try to keep them all here. At the modified level, we are monitoring your kids. There's somebody should be watching them from the time they get on that bus until the time they get home. And so at the high school, they'll get more freedom. After school, they can kind of walk around, hang out in the cafeteria. We give them more of that freedom, but in the middle school, we try to keep track of all of them. So
Yeah, that's a big point. We do not let kids go over to 12 Corners and then come back to sports study hall. There's a million different reasons why, but safety is the number one. So that's why, Mark said it's nice to be able to pack them a snack because they're hanging out in the cafeteria, they're hanging with their buddies. Some kids are doing homework, some kids are just hanging and chatting, but they cannot leave campus and then come back. So either they're going home and coming back for the game, or they're staying in sports study hall. There's no hanging out at 12 Corners.
Do we have any other questions? I hope I answered that one.
Hi, Mark. It's Stasha again. Sorry.
Yeah.
In the past, there's been a sport that does not have any cuts each season. Is that still the case? And
Yes.
you could talk about
Um,
that.
sure. Let me
Stasha, is
see.
he paying you to
These
throw the
are
Sorry.
these are
questions
perfect.
down?
Yeah, I know. I was
Well,
just
I'm
thinking
gonna
of all the things I've not learned in the past that have been helpful.
I love it.
yeah,
It's great.
it's great. I'm gonna write them down. I'll be prepared, better prepared next year. So in the fall we have cross country. That's a sport that we can take as many as can be. We've never made cuts in football, and so that one's available. Soccer, we can take high numbers, but that potentially could have cuts. Swimming is not a fall sport for modified, but that's a number where we've had traditionally one of the highest grouping of kids, in I think 2 years ago we had 50 kids, which was one of the biggest in Monroe County, and we were able to handle all of them. Volleyball would make cuts if we had a lot. Um, and then there's
What about,
also,
wait, sorry, what about wrestling in the fall or winter?
yeah,
In the winter.
yeah, in the winter we can take, I don't think we've ever made cuts. And, we encourage people to go to wrestling. Um, Basketball would have to make cuts. That's a pretty popular sport. Indoor does not start till ninth grade. Modified swimming kind of happens in the winter, so that's one where we can take all sports. Cheerleading, we've had low numbers, so they're just, they're not making a cut there. In the spring, I mean, our numbers haven't been strong enough where we've had to make cuts in lacrosse, um, especially with the shot clock being added. We feel like at the varsity level, we need more athletes available because of the game speeding up. So we would love to get more athletes. We need more players in softball. Those numbers were low this year. Baseball could make cuts. Modified track does not make cuts. There's an army of kids there. And then I think some people probably want to know if they wanted to try out for JV sport, the selection classification process. That is a varsity driven process. The state says that the varsity coach has to approve them and say, yes, we think they're mentally, emotionally, physically, as well as skill wise, good enough to be up there. And so if you think your child is somebody that could make a JV team, I would start by communicating to the varsity coach, introduce yourself. Summer's a great time because if the coach is not familiar with the child, they could come to a camp, an open gym. The coach kind of gets a feel. Now, if we're going to bring a modified player up to the high school, they should be a starter or one of the first off the bench. We don't bring kids up to sit on a bench and potentially cut high school kids. So they're competing, they truly have to be exceptional. They're competing against some of the best kids on JV. And so that's kind of the criteria that the coaches will look through. Are they not just good enough to make the team, but good enough to really contribute? Okay. And so occasionally we'll bring a couple extra kids in alpine skiing. Those numbers were low, so we brought up a few more modified kids there. Even alpine, he can only take so many kids, but if there's not a large group of high school kids, then there's room to bring a couple more and start getting them developed. Um, but for the rest, we're making cuts like JV basketball. They'd have to be good enough to be a starter or first off the bench.
Mark, there's a question here about sports like hockey when there are low numbers.
Yep.
And so I think you kind of talked about like bringing younger kids up. What does that generally look like?
So we would contact the coach. He'd probably have them come try out for hockey. Um, Safety is the big thing for hockey. So some kids may be on the team and he'll let them practice a lot and get that ice time. And then they still play on their travel teams, but they're part of the group. They're still getting ice time. If it was a team that wasn't as physical and more competitive, we might be able to get a few more of those kids in there. But in general, they'll take them just because we don't have a JV or modified program in hockey. Ice time is so expensive, and we do have the room. So, if we're not concerned that they're going to get hurt, there's a good chance the coach will give them an opportunity, if they wanted to practice and potentially get into a game here and there. It's a good question. Thanks.
Any other questions about modified sports? I love that FAQ page that you created, Mark. I hadn't looked at that before. Sorry to admit that, but it's great. There's a lot of information there.
Thanks. Yeah. And so like in the beginning of the fall, I'll probably email everybody letting them know and then do a link to that because it may ask about transportation and what do I do with a bag? Where do our kids put our bags and that type of thing. So I'll continue to add that out, especially as I hear these questions coming in.
Great. Janita, anything else?
I think please call the athletic department, email me anytime, and whatever you guys need, we'll keep building it out.
No, thank you so much.
Great.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep, thanks.
So I can talk briefly about trips for TCMS and what they'll look like next year and then the following year, hopefully. We've got at 6th grade the outdoor ed opportunity, and that is for all 6th grade students. So they go through a day at camp. We're hoping to get back at Sunshine Rotary again this year. We've been working with them, and they're trying to do whatever they can to help make it a go. And it will be like years past so that the kids on each team will have a full day out there with their teachers and their peers. And that's all part of the school experience. There's no cost to families for that at all. We've been able to budget for that in the last 2 years, which has taken some creative budgeting, but I think it's really important since we know that all kids are going, that we make sure that that opportunity is available to them. So we'll have more information coming up as we finalize information with the camp, with Sunshine Rotary Camp again. But we're really looking forward to being back out there and doing, camp as it's been for years. So stay tuned for more on that. 7th grade next year will be going to DC as they always do. And our goal obviously is to make that a class experience for as many of the kids as we possibly can. The PTSA, so Student Support Fund, has been amazing. Folks have been amazing in terms of donations and supporting other students. And that has really allowed us to help students who otherwise wouldn't be able to go. This past year, the trip was over $900. Which is a ridiculous amount of money. It's truly the cost of transportation that has changed everything. But we have been working really hard. Stephanie Elkins is taking over the management of the trip. And kudos to her. She has been spending the last month and a half really connecting with a bunch of different school districts, a number of tour companies, and we feel like we're in a really good place. We feel like we're down to about $700 for the trip and keeping pretty much all of the activities that we've done in the past. So we haven't signed on the dotted line, but we're using a reputable company. We're going to change the tour company, a company that other schools in the area use, that my own children's school uses. I've been on the trip with them, so I know what they do. I know what it looks like. And it's really our commitment to bring that cost down as much as we possibly can. It's a 3-day trip. And again, we're hoping to be in the $700 range. And the company is great in terms of offering payment plans and also the student support fund for students who need it. It's hard. We can't it's rare that we can cover an entire trip for a family, but we can do, you know, a significant portion. So that's awesome. And then eighth grade next year, there will be the French trip to Quebec, which will be at the end of January, and then the Spanish trip to New York City. And those trips will probably be in the $800-900 range. We're still looking at trying to get those down. But it's been really hard. We've looked at a number of different tour companies and different opportunities, and they're all in the same ballpark. So we continue to look for ways to offset the costs, but that's where we are with those. The German trip runs every other year. So those seventh and eighth graders went to Vermont this past May. So they won't go again until 2027. So there's no trip for them next year. And that trip is in between the $700-800 range as well. I was just going to see something about the trips and I lost it. Oh, we took 47 German students on the French trip. I think there were almost 70 kids who went on the Spanish trip, and there were just as many. So 2 buses for the Spanish trip and then 2 buses for the French trip as well. So it's certainly not a trip that every eighth grader goes on. Families do different things based on their needs. Some families, you know, they're like, my kid has been to New York City. I know they're doing, you know, cultural experiences, but we've already been there. We're going to bow out. Other families, you know, decide that they want to go, and that's less of a class-based trip, especially since they're going in 3 different directions, than the DC trip. Like, we really just want to get as many kids in the 7th grade to go on that DC trip to have that one core overnight experience while they're in middle school. Questions about that? It's, you know, I think everybody knows, like, everything costs more right now. And so I get kudos to those who are running the trips and taking on that load, because I keep pushing them. You've got to get the cost down. You've got to get the cost down. But I want you to keep everything that's been in the trips in the past. So don't give up on anything, but get the costs down. And it's not super easy. So, but we sure are trying. That's it in terms of the trips. And then it's the end of the year. It is June already. I guess I'll just give an update on that. We've got the end of the year. The last day of school is June 25th, which is a change because it was originally June 26th. And on June 25th, we're taking school for the day is a field trip. So the 6th and 7th graders are going to Seabreeze, and the 8th graders, we've restored the trip back to Darien Lake, which is exciting. So they're gone for a little bit of a longer day. They won't be back likely until about 6 o'clock in the evening, whereas the Seabreeze students have a shorter day. They'll leave here about 9 o'clock. And then we'll head back to school about 1:30. So they get a short time, but what I found last year was that a lot of parents arranged for their students to stay, either because they met them at the park, or there was, you know, a friend's parent who stayed with them, and then the kids stayed on for the rest of the day. We didn't take many back to TCMS when we returned, because a lot of students stayed at the park, which is great. What else do we have? We have the bonfire coming up on the 14th for 8th graders, and they're all looking forward to that. I know that the folks planning it have an awesome night set, so that'll go really well. We just finished our 5 Go 6 activity night, which was very well attended, and the kids were fantastic. They really had a good time. And Stacy Bannister did a really nice job with a tour in the TCMS Strong. They had these big sticks with numbers on them, and every 5 to 10 minutes they would call a number, and that group would meet in the atrium, and then they'd all go on a tour and do a little scavenger hunt of the building. So the 5th graders were excited to be able to walk through and learn a little bit about their future teachers. And then, of course, we're already planning for orientation for fifth grade students, 506 students, and our transfer students, and all of the great things. We've got an awesome building project coming up. Our entire FACS suite, Family and Consumer Science, or Home Economics suite, is being redone this summer. So that's going to be really like, I keep saying it's going to be a space that's going to outlive me. So it's a very utilitarian space. It will allow us to certainly do the things that we do in the FACS curriculum, but also think beyond that in terms of STEAM, and all sorts of things that we don't even know exist right now. So we're excited for that. And we're getting some stairwells redone this summer, so that'll be good. And then next summer is the big one. So we're moving the main office will be moving down into a portion of the atrium. We're certainly not getting rid of our flagship atrium by any means. But we will be moving the main office, the administrative offices downstairs. And then what is currently the main office and counseling office will be a mental health suite. So the counseling office will be up there. There will be some quiet spaces for students to regulate. There'll be a conference room. It'll just be really geared towards supporting the mental health and wellness of our students. So we're excited about that.
Awesome. I was just gonna ask you if when the big one is. So
Yeah.
that's next summer, you said?
It's next summer, and I mean, I'm overlooking what I think is the most important thing is that we will have we currently have a single point of entry. So everybody has to come in through those main doors to the atrium, but it will truly be a single point of entry in the sense that you'll be buzzed in, but you'll be in a vestibule. So like right now you get buzzed in and you're in the building. But once our construction project is done, you'll be entered into a space where security will be. We'll get all of your credentials, analyze why you're there, and then determine whether there needs to be access to the building. Parents and family members who are dropping things off won't have to come into the building. They'll just be able to enter the vestibule and drop things off. I feel really good about it from a safety perspective. And that's really the driving force in all of it is just the single point of entry. We're hoping to get some air conditioning in our gym and some new bleachers in the project. We're hoping that we can be able to pull that all in since it's all in the same area. But that's going to wind up, we'll see how costs are and everything plays out. But the single point of entry is number one, the offices moving down, and number two, and the mental health suite, number three. So it'll be great. And I think we're going to get rid of the ugly awning where all the birds make their home.
That'll be exciting.
Yes. Anything else?
Yeah, any questions, anybody? The chat is empty, so I think you did such a great job.
All right. Well, awesome. I can't believe it's June already, and we're excited. There's lots of energy in the school, but it's a really good positive energy. So it's fun. It's fun to be around.
Yes, they're excited. My kids are now counting backwards, right? They're like, I have fighting over who has more or less time left.
Yeah. No, your daughter has
makes
way
sense.
less time than your son.
Way less. And every day she's like, how many do I have? Yeah, good for her.
So, all right. Well, if anybody needs anything, don't hesitate to email me, call the office, certainly here. Same thing I know for Mark, the athletic office, ask all of the questions. I'd always rather you ask than, be frustrated that you don't know.
Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up.
All right. Enjoy the sunshine while it's here.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Good evening.
Good night.